Hey everybody, Asher here with the Stellaris 1.1 Clarke update. This is the beta version, and it will be released a little bit later. In this video I'm going to go over a few new features in the patch, some things that will hopefully illuminate or make things more clear, as well as talk about a few things that have frustrated me a little bit more in the late game of Stellaris, and see if this patch addresses them or try and work with them. So to start here, I'm going to talk about a few of the larger features for this 1.1 update, which, by the way, it does work with old saves, so you can watch that pretty well. Probably the biggest change in terms of cheesing and everything else is that corvette spam, which is a tactic I never really employed, but it's something that's very viable here, has been reduced in effectiveness. Specifically, they've decreased the evade effectiveness for different kinds of thrusters, which is part of where you're able to stack that evade. And hopefully, as a result, thrusters aren't going to work as well. Also, they've rebalanced and tweaked some of the different philosophies, whether they give you more things, less things. The xenophobe and xenophile changes are especially interesting because xenophobia, you now get more influence from rivalries, whereas xenophiles, you actually have alliance reduction cost, which is pretty neat. Some other things that have changed as well include a lot of UI changes. That's most of what Clarke is going for, including diplomatic changes appearing more clearly, post-combat appearing more clearly, and you have planetary features viewable from the system map, which we'll view a little bit more of what that means in just a second. Some of the other changes that I'm hoping are largely AI and quality of life changes, such as in-game crises. Right now, the CPU or the AI opponents just kind of sit there and do nothing with it. So hopefully that will change. Then you also have the AI, sector AI. There's been a lot of reports, you've probably read them yourself if you've followed Stellaris, where a sector AI is essentially horrible. It will replace things, it will purge robots if you're trying to do a robot empire. It will make things very, very sad. If you take over a fallen empire planet, it will replace all their wonderful buildings with terrible farms, things like that. That has supposedly been addressed. However, that's going to go a little bit outside the scope of this video because some of these features and changes take a long time to kind of overarch here. But if you want 3 big points for the Stellaris 1.1 change, it's that there's some UI cleanup, there's been some rebalancing in terms of some of the philosophies or some of the traits for starting out with people, as well as ship. And then you also have hopefully AI fixes, especially for endgame crises. So to better look at this patch, what I want to do is to load into a game that's actually in the middle of an endgame crisis. There's a few things that I kind of want to discuss and talk about here in terms of the changes, where this save is at right now. As the Prethoryn Scourges appear, they appeared pretty close to my empire. And you can see that we do have some increased energy credits, some minerals and everything like that, but nothing that's really going to stand out. What does stand out is that if we zoom down a little bit, you now have different icons for these planets. Like there's a tundra world here that I can see is 60% habitable. I can actually click on that icon and see it. So that is really useful, especially when you want to colonize by clicking the colonization button. Same thing here, ocean world. Terrible ocean world, but an ocean world nonetheless. And as we go around the map, we can find a few other places that are colonizable, such as right here. And you see there's an ocean world that's 24 tiles. We also have an Arctic world, and you can literally just click and see the difference. So that is really a very nice, probably my favorite quality of life feature in this patch so far. Now, as I said before, there are some changes that are beyond the scope of this video. You can see that I have a lot of sectors. And if we look at some of the planets on our sectors, I mean, it's not awful. The AI is just doing what I tell it to, and I've been feeding it resources. I don't have any huge complaints. It's one of those things where obviously if I was micromanaging it, I would probably be doing better. But the goal here right now is to fight the Prethoryn Scourge. And I do just want to go into briefly, I will show here some before and after video, but specifically where we're at right now, and I'll talk about this again, is that the AI, this is my AI opponent where it started next to. Inferior fleet capacity, inferior naval capacity. So it's hard to say whether the Prethoryn Scourge just took them out right away and has a bunch of fleets going around there. Honestly, from my knowledge of the event, that's not really how it works. But they haven't had any ship defenses around here for a long time. They could have sent this group to bombard this planet. They have not done so. They've let it ride. So I'm curious to see if I were to play this whole save over, if that would change. But what we are going to do here is go ahead and take a fight with this big swarm. Now, for those of you who are not very familiar with the Prethoryn Scourge, they are large swaths of Zerg-like creatures, and you can see they're bioorganic. They use primarily ballistic, so they're very easy to hard counter, and we'll go into that later. But all I want to look and see in this is that if there's any good performance, like updates, do things look better, feel better, play better. And then we also want to look at kind of the follow-up combat log, because that's another thing that's going to change as well. We also have new rivalry sort of UI, and you can see we're warping in here. The Prethoryn Scourge also uses warp as well, but you can see this is much clearer than before with these updates. So we're actually getting our engagement right now. That's good. There they are. There we are. It's going to be Anton versus Gestalt Pattern Depriver. And I'll talk a little bit about the Prethoryn Scourge and kind of what they do. Like I said, I have a guide video that I'm making for them. I'm going to do a guide video for each in-game crisis that I face. As I face them, you'll notice this is not the Ashen Collective save. I've tried to follow up on my promise to not play super ahead on my saves as much as I'm tempted to post XCOM fiasco. I wouldn't even call it a fiasco, but just post XCOM here. But we're going to see this fight, and you can see that this is largely unchanged. And although it's not going to show it as much here, because these guys are going to swarm at us, one thing that is still problematic that I'll tack on at the end of this video is that we still have issues with the AI computers forcing some of your ships to not actually take the engagement. Like, we have some torpedoes that are firing here, which is not what we want. Also, there's some new point defense laser light shows, so we'll watch those play as well. You can see those missiles actually getting evaporated one by one. But some of these ships do not immediately rush into the engagement. They kind of stay back. It's not as pronounced here. But like I said, it is one of my biggest annoyances. But regardless, if we look at everything, we're just going to watch this nice big fight. This is my less than 30 stack versus their 30 stack. And you know what? I can actually send in some of the clowns as well to reinforce. So we'll do just that. Probably won't even be necessary. Because when you fight the Prethoryn Scourge, you have the Queen, which makes up a lot of military strength, and the Queen is also what summons other units. So that's all well and good. But once this combat goes on, like I said, I'm interested just to show you all, mainly to show you all a larger engagement and what it looks like on the post-combat as well. So I'm just going to let some of these technologies ride. I've already played through this part of the save. Like I said, this is an old save. I have played through the Prethoryn Scourge. There is a event that may or may not appear, which I'll talk about that in the other video. But you can see right here we have the performance is okay. I mean, they've said they've been making progressive performance tweaks. Honestly, my computer should be able to handle some of these things better. You can see I'm not going at like 1 frame per second. I'm not going to turn on the console commands right now, but you can see there still is a little bit of stuttering every now and then. The ship's going to lurch forward and stop, lurch forward and stop. You can finally see these guys engaging. Now, I don't know how much of it is like a combined arms... Okay, that's the wrong one. I don't know how much of this is like a combined arms issue, where I have a few torpedoes on ships that also have lasers and point defense. And that would cause the problem with it staying back a little too far. But we'll go ahead and just, like I said, this combat's going to resolve itself. I've barely taken any losses. There is an issue with point defense right now, although I don't think I have as much of an issue here, where pretty much it hits way too much, it hits way too often. You can see that they've only done just a little bit of missile damage being inflicted on them, so that's just nuts for how much point defense is actually in there. It's like, it's just interesting. We have pretty high evasion. Actually, this is higher evasion than I'm used to, but my general does have scout and trickster, so that does increase evasion quite a bit. But you can see we just mowed right through these guys. There's not too much more to it. We have another war declaration. We can see once again detailed icons. It's nice because not everyone knows necessarily the names of people. I'm always more of an icon visual person, but these guys just got eviscerated. Like I said, this, if you can catch them early, it's not so bad. So let's just pause here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the fleet combat. And you can see we lost 9 destroyers. We lost 14 corvettes. All of our cruisers and battleships survived. Keep in mind that this is not a spam or anything, and meanwhile, they lost everything. We can see the total damage output. There's just a lot more. There's just a lot more to it here. It's pretty nice, and they actually only inflicted 3,000 damage, whereas they inflicted way more than 3,000 damage. They just got only so much damage through, whereas over here we delivered quite a bit more. So that is pretty much how Clarke looks. I just want to briefly in video go over one of the other things that still isn't fixed in Clarke, and I'm a little frustrated about it. Let's do that now. Now this is post-recorded footage of a different fight. It's at 3 times speed on normal speed. So it's going to look possibly a little herky-jerky because that's how it actually looks in the client. But what I'm focusing on are my battleships that are in the back. And I did allude this into the other fight. And yes, there was some big lag and stuttering in this smaller engagement for whatever reason. And that's a common theme in late-game fights in Stellaris as well. My system is well above system requirements. But Paradox will have an optimization patch eventually. Clarke is not that. But the big problem is that they did say, at least I saw in a tweet previously, that they were going to fix this issue with the ship AI. And this is in 1.0.3. The issue specifically is that I have a bunch of ships who are being evasive by staying all the way back, and even though my fleet strength is very high, much higher in this engagement, my actual effective ships, it's primarily my corvettes and destroyers that are going into the fight. So that is a bit of a problem. While I do win here, my heavy hitters, my battleships in the back, do not even engage. You can tell because my ballistic damage is way higher than my energy damage. Those are mostly laser boats. Let's compare it to 1.1. This is the same engagement, same speed, same save, because old saves do work. And once again, we're going to see with the 1.1 AI update, even with the Prethoryn Scourge, which is an AI that will pretty much charge you and fire missiles at you, we still have the issue where the AI controlled ships, the AI fleet, all the battleships in the back, some of them are plinking away with torpedoes, a few that have a few token torpedoes on there. But I have laser boats in the back as well, and those laser boats are doing absolutely nothing. So while we are getting some new light shows from the point defense systems, same thing as before. My engagement is, if this were to be a proper engagement with all the ships totally involved, my battleships in the back would be firing lasers. I have a few that are just doing absolutely nothing right now. Now, granted, we still win, we still mop up, but it does bother me that this is still an issue. And if we go and look over here, I'm going to let this run just a little bit longer. And what we end up seeing here is a bit of a conga line, where my battle cruisers and everything else still stay in the far back, my battleships and my cruisers, while my corvettes and destroyers are actually the ones that engage these systems, or engage the colony ship, engage the little star base there, engage the military bases as well. Now, I do have a few ship designs I'm just highlighting here that they do have some token torpedoes. I'm not sure if that really confuses things, but what it boils down to is that I have a stack of ships that is very strong, but maybe only 3 or 4K worth of actual combat ship engaged here, which becomes a very big problem when I'm having to take on multiple stations, and is kind of the story of my whole battle versus the Prethoryn Scourge. Big engagements went okay, but some of these smaller engagements, my fleets would end up stretching all the way across the solar system or partway. So it is something that does need to be fixed. Paradox does have a very good track record of fixing things over time, but Clarke is not where it is fixed, apparently, regardless of what may or may not have been said or promised on Reddit and tweets. What else? So there's still some work to do for people who are wondering about Stellaris. I still think it's a very good game. It's fun. It definitely does need some work, does need some tweaks, and we can talk about that a little bit more in another video. But like I said, Clarke 1.1, it's going to be out in a few days. It does have some good quality of life features. So if you want to dive back into the game, you're waiting for that, by all means do so. But that's it for now. This is Asher, and we're going to talk about some more Stellaris in the days to come, including how to actually properly combat the Prethoryn Scourge. Yay! We'll do it again next time. Thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see more Stellaris content, and I will see you soon. Take care.